Hi everybody, I'm back again this week with another video for you. I apologize for the state of my voice. I lost it earlier this week when I got sick, and today is kind of the first day where I haven't felt super squeaky slash like crap, and I've been planning on doing a video for about a week, so I thought I'd take advantage of the fact that this is my day off. Today I want to talk about kind of the pros and cons of working in archaeology, because I feel like a lot of people look at this job through rose-tinted glasses and that they kind of think, oh, you know, it's so great, you get to do what you love and you have this really interesting job, and they don't really see like the negative side of it. And while I'm never one that I want to really promote really negative things, I want to be realistic, and I don't want to just like perpetuate this view that like I love my job and it's fantastic and glorious and it's great. And like, I do have days where I really doubt myself and I think like, why did I choose this? But then I also have days where I absolutely love my job. So I wanted to kind of represent some of the things about my job that are really great, some of the things that are not as great. So I've picked kind of 5 overarching concepts for each. I'm going to start off today by talking about my first kind of good thing about archaeology is that I get to travel a lot for my job. I traveled to the Middle East when I was in my undergraduate degree. During my master's degree, I traveled to do some stuff in Bulgaria, and I didn't get paid to do those, but they were still opportunities I wouldn't have necessarily had or taken if I hadn't been in archaeology. And for work, generally you can't guarantee that all of your work is only going to be like in one place. I know that personally I've gone to the Highlands a couple times. I am now currently living in the Midlands, which actually gives me a lot of opportunities to kind of travel around the rest of England that I wouldn't necessarily take when I'm back up in Scotland, because it's so much of a trek to get down here. Traveling for work is something that's really enjoyable, fun, and always lets you have some new experiences. However, I have found that it's great when you're young and you're out of university and you kind of want to get out of your parents' house and you want to have this new lifestyle. It's really nice, but as you get older and you know you're maybe looking for some more stability in your life, it can be really taxing on you. So if you're having to travel away from work like 4 or 5 days a week, or like I am right now, I'm pretty much living here, but I have a house that I pay rent for and a partner back up in Scotland. You know, it's hard. Having to go where the work isn't as always as fun as it used to be maybe when you were younger. The kind of first con that I'm going to talk about is pay, which I have a big beef with in this particular, I guess, career, because archaeologists generally nowadays, not so much in the older generation, but we tend to, all of us have degrees from universities, and a lot of us have a lot of post-secondary degrees, but we remain like one of the most underpaid jobs out there. It's above the minimum living wage, which is great, but it's like you're never going to be making a lot of money at this job. And you know, people that are wanting to save up for houses or weddings or babies and stuff like that, when you're working at the lower levels like I am right now, like you're really not making a lot of money. And while you will make money later, like there are less of those jobs, so there's no guarantee that you're ever going to make it up that high. Like I currently work with quite a few people who are significantly older than I am, and are still getting paid like probably just around £20,000 a year, which is like, it's just not a lot. When you travel for work, which is like I said is quite often, you do get a per diem, and your company is required to like pay for where you're staying. Sometimes this can go a little bit either way and you can end up in some really strange spots. However, the fact that you kind of get to do like a hotel stay and they pay for your food for the majority of your week can be quite nice, and it can help a lot of people save money. Each company dictates differently how they do their per diem and stuff like that. I know the best that I've ever had was when I worked in Canada a couple years ago, and I have no idea if this is currently how the company still does it or not, but we got $50 a day for every day that we were gone. And that's a lot. And we got paid in cash. You would arrive at wherever you were staying. Your supervisor would hand you $250 to just spend however you wanted, ideally on food, which was really, really good. I've worked for a couple companies here that they have rules about their per diems where you're not allowed to spend it on like alcohol and toiletries. It only has to be on food. Some of them ask for the per diem back if you don't spend all of it. So it's not very regulated over here, and it's not as good in the UK as it was in Canada, but still the fact that you're getting this extra money that's not supposed to be taxed on top of your paycheck is quite nice, and it does help with the fact that you are staying away from home. The second positive thing I want to talk about is the fact of all the new people that you have the opportunity to meet when you work this job, simply because you do move around a lot, and the workforce has, like, I don't know if I want to say a high turnover, but you're always going to be meeting new people as they join and leave jobs. For me, this has been really nice because I don't know about some other people, but after I graduated from my undergraduate program, and this also happened in my post-secondary, my graduate program, all the friends that I'd made during that time and that studying, they left because they went to go home to wherever they stayed. And the amount of people that were left in the city that I was living in was quite small. And my friend group went from like suddenly really big to really tiny. And you know, when you don't have something like university to like meet new people, I feel like a lot of people in their late 20s can struggle to find new friends. I found that I could just get kind of lonely because I just didn't really have a lot of people to hang out with besides my partner, and I love him, but I need more social interaction than that. And obviously I'm awful at Skyping with all my friends back home. So this particular job that I've been on is really, really nice because I've met so many new people, and it's such a large project that there's a lot more opportunity for you to meet people that you're actually going to get along with really well and make some really good friendships out of it, which I have done. You won't arrive on a project and everyone will just kind of look at you like you're the outsider and, you know, not really treat you very nicely, because there's so much people going from job to job and people joining new groups and stuff. Like, people are just really open and welcoming, and you can use, and because you all love archaeology, you already have one thing automatically in common that everyone talks about. So that's been a really great thing for me. The second negative or not so positive thing that I want to talk about is temporary contracts. Now, this is only really applicable to people working at like site assistant and project officer levels, not so much in higher than that, but temporary contracts are the worst, and I do not like them. Unfortunately, they're not something that can be done away with because of the nature of our work. It's very dependent upon a lot of other things happening, and sometimes stuff can happen very abruptly and things change really quickly. So they essentially, you're not going to be getting pretty much a permanent job, which until you're higher up and more experienced, which if you have to pay bills and rent and debt and all these things, that can be really difficult for a lot of people, myself included. I went from like having a 10-month like contract somewhere to all of a sudden I had nothing, and then I only had 1 week of work, and then the next month I had nothing, and the next month I had 2 weeks of work. And it really ebbs and flows. Some companies, like the one that I'm with now, they give out huge like 6-month contracts for big infrastructure projects and so on and so forth. But a lot other companies, they might only advertise 4 weeks or 2 weeks. One company I worked for, like pretty much everyone except for a couple people was like on a week-to-week contract. So they call you on Thursday or Friday and they say whether or not you have work next week, which like is not a lot of notice for you to go around and look for work elsewhere, which is why in one of my other videos I suggested that you try and have maybe a job that you can kind of pick up and drop, so that when these situations happen you have like a fallback. But it's just really inconvenient, and it like not only in terms of you don't really know where your money's coming from, but also it makes it really difficult to plan your life. I just recently tried to move flats, and my partner and I had to like jump through hoops in order not to pay 6 months rent up front, because I, you know, technically only had a contract that was ending in March when the lease was starting, and they needed me to have more like a longer time at work than that, which I managed to work out, but it's just, it can be really to your detriment rather than to your benefit, these temporary contracts. The third positive thing that I want to talk about is something that sounds really cheesy, but I'm going to call it the thrill of discovery. I remember on my very first field school when I found this like object that hadn't been touched or by people for like 4,000 years. I just was like so excited, and you kind of get, you know, the adrenaline pumping and stuff. And my professor said to me, you know, oh, it's an addictive feeling, isn't it? And it really is. Just kind of that sense of just discovering something or something really interesting is a really cool part of the job, and discovering interesting things is a really interesting part of the job because you get to learn a lot about them, and maybe even occasionally you get to be in the news or on TV or in the paper. And like your best days at work are days when you're finding things, and it just feels like you're getting some reward for all the work that you're putting in. The third con that I'm going to talk about is how much it sucks to work in the weather sometimes in this job, because I've particularly noticed that archaeologists tend to be like the last person that's going to go off site, because I think we have this weird mentality that we're really tough and we can just work through anything. It pretty much has to be either like torrenting down with rain or a thunderstorm. The rest of the time you're going to be at work, so you don't have these kind of bad weather days. And sometimes when, you know, it's not exactly bad enough for you guys to go home or to sit in the cabin, but it's still really miserable outside, that really sucks. About 2 weeks ago, not this week past, but the week before, it was so cold here. I couldn't feel my toes for most of my day, but it's like not cold enough to go indoors, and work still needs to get done, and you're so far away from your compound that you can't even like go in to warm up for a little bit and come back out. So that for me, and I think for a lot of other people, I have a hard time with that, like when it's a really, really shitty day at work and the weather is just awful and I'm just covered like head to toe in mud. Another positive thing about this job is that it keeps you pretty fit. If you're working hard and you're doing lots of shoveling and hoeing and heavy kind of stuff, you're going to be working off a lot of calories every day. We have a joke on site that when we're doing stuff like that, we call it a 4,000 calorie day, because that, like, you're just working all day lifting heavy things and shoveling and using a mattock and stuff like that, and you're constantly just pushing yourself. And currently we work 10-hour days, so it just means that, you know, you don't really need to go to the gym in order to stay healthy, skinny, or whatever your ideal is, because generally a lot of the time you're burning a lot of your the same amount of calories while you're at work that you would be at the gym. I did a lot more heavy work when I was in Canada, but that was because all we did all day was shoveling and sieving. And like sieving, you might not think, but like pushing something back and forward with a bunch of dirt hanging in it when it's really heavy actually does give you quite a workout. Here, as I've said before, there's a bit more ebb and flow to the work, so you're not spending as much time doing heavy stuff, but you still have a lot more opportunity than, you know, somebody who's sitting at a desk. The fourth con that I'm going to talk about is how alternately, because this is a really physically demanding career, it is really hard on your body, especially as you get older. I know that when I started working back in Canada, I was just like in tears almost because I was so sore, and people were saying to me, yeah, the first like month sucks. And you just have to get used to it. You get calluses everywhere. A lot of archaeologists, somewhat ironically, have to end up getting a lot of knee replacements. Arthritis, obviously you have to be predispositioned for that, but I have, like, my joints really, really hurt me sometimes, especially when I spend my whole day traveling, because that really, really works your wrists. The last positive thing that I want to talk about is the fact that this job is always engaging. If you're the kind of person that doesn't look forward to sitting at a desk like every day and doing the same thing, and you really like being outdoors and you like being outside, like this is the job for you. When the weather's nice, it's really nice, and you're always learning on this job, and it makes it so that everything's like not really boring because you're constantly doing new things, which I personally really quite like about it, that I always feel like I'm learning. And you know, it is nice to not always just be stuck behind a desk at a computer screen every day. Last con of this is a con, but it isn't. So I've been talking to quite a few people at work about how archaeology and the lifestyle of archaeology, like, it is kind of all consuming for you after a while. This is especially true like right now for me because I currently work with a crew of like 60 other people. I live with four of them, and we all socialize together because none of us have any other friends living in this city that we're in. And like it can get to the point where like archaeology is just your life. And that's like, it can seem like it's all you ever talk about and it's all you ever do, which I personally need more variety in my life than that. It can be even more so because a lot of people also tend to date other archaeologists. We're very inbred as a discipline, which I find quite funny. I fortunately don't. So it's nice that when I talk to my partner, like we talk about other things. We don't just talk about archaeology and work and stuff. Like right now, the project I'm working on, I would say 80% of my conversations are about work. And that's not just at work, that's after work. Everyone talks about what's happened at their day, who's doing what all the site drama is, and all of that stuff. And it just takes over your life sometimes, especially with the traveling as well, because you get really isolated and you just don't tend to interact with a lot of people that are outside of the like archaeology bubble. And so it's not necessarily a con, because if you love archaeology, that's great, but it just consumes your life. And I think that I just, variety is the spice of life. And like personally, I just like to have that. Yeah, so I hope that kind of these 5 pros and cons have given you a bit more realistic of idea of what my job entails. And what it's like if you are possibly considering going into it. I feel like a lot of people look at this discipline with rose-tinted glasses and they think that everything's great and you're finding gold and you're doing all this stuff all the time, and the reality is it's not like that. It's like all other jobs on the planet. You have really good days and you have really shitty days, and that's just the way it is. So I hope this has given you a bit of a more realistic view of what this career is like. If you liked this video, please like it. If you have any questions for me, please comment below. If you really liked it, please subscribe. I have a couple more that I have ideas for coming out for this month. I'm trying to get on a more regular schedule, but as I've said before, it can be quite difficult with working 60 hours a week. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!